Up, up. Up, up. We're back! So hi, Isaac! I'm sorry if you heard Discord messages. I was getting information about a commission. We're back with Kyoto wins. And we're starting Saito's route. I did not pick this order. But we're doing it. This is a work of fiction. Named characters, businesses, places, events, and incidents mentioned in this work do not have any direct correlation with... I'll never be able to read that fast enough. Would you like to skip the prologue? Yes. Alright, let me see. Y'all are messaging on the stage. Why are y'all messaging me now? Alright, we're fine. We're fine. We're fine. Or maybe not. Anyway. $10 update to the game. Really? For Sonic Origins? Huh. Alright. Anyway, we're pressing the skip button. Which is button mash. Or button mash. We know this story by this point. We should know this story at this point. But I will slow it down for the last 2. I don't own it, so. Hey, Okita. If you want a recap of what the fuck happened here. So it's the YouTube channel. Button mash. Faster button mash. We have 4 routes left. Just 4. All we gotta do is complete 4 of them. That's all we have to do. Well, let's see how far we go today. Alright, and then we're left in our room. Left to ponder what the fuck we're gonna do. And we're gonna attempt to explain our situation. Followed by... actually, that's it. After a few moments, the door slid open. And several faces appeared around the edges. They just, like, tilt their head to the side through the doors like, hi.
大胆だなお前さん。囚われの身分で俺らを呼びつけるなんてよ。で、自分から声をかけてくるなんざ、そろそろ腹も決まったのか。
No, that's not it. I want you to hear me out.
おそらくあんたの事情は組めないだろう。それでよければ話すといい。
お前の運のなさには同情する。まあ、成仏してくれな。
Every time I see that face on his kids, just...
ほら、男なら諦めが肝心だろ。
They all spoke as if they'd already co-signed me to death. It was time to make the choice. I decided to tell them why I came to Kyoto. I turned to Saito. It was cold, but I hoped that meant he would hear reason as well. I'm looking for someone. Unfortunately, I don't actually know anyone in Kyoto. I only got here yesterday afternoon.
つまり、夜べもなしに女子一人で人探しをしていたわけか。
今の今日は治安があんまし良くねえし、人探しは楽じゃねえよな。って女
？You figured it out? He figured it out last night.
少し見ていればわかる。あんたの仕草は女子のものだろう。
ちょっと待ってよ。女って本当なのか？そう言われてみると確かに動きがおしとやかな感じだったような。そうだよな。まあ俺は最初から気がついていたぜ。
You did not, Heisuke.
俺ってやつは女のことは知らなくて、だからその
言葉もないか新八。女関係は最高に疎いもんなお前。
だってよ、最初に言ってくれなきゃ。
ひとまず副長のもとへ戻るぞ。当然だがあんたにも来てもらう。事情の説明は全員が揃ってから改めて頼む。
All right. He looked at me silently and nodded. I nodded too, unsure of what else I could do. And we're back to button mashing. Basically, we explain everything. They're still shocked that I'm a girl and blah. So we're telling them we came to Kyoto because we're here to look for our father and stuff. And they had looked through our belongings and they realized, hey, you got the last name Yukimura, just like this doctor that was working with us and has gone missing the past 6 months. We don't know where the fuck he is. But also kind of suspicious that you just so happen to be related. That's really the gist of it, but we're staying with them in order to find our father. Because they're also interested in it. The yawning has returned, as always. And also we're Hijikata's page for some reason. Alright. February, it's been a week. Yes, it's been a week. Hijikata and Sana-san are in Osaka. And we've been told to stay in our room mid-February. Anyway, going past all this.
お前そうもうこうだ
Our next choice shall be...
は
As soon as we get there. Oh no, I was torn. We swore a family heirloom, one that we should keep by our side forever and ever. And it's the reason why we know how to actually defend ourselves a little bit, but not entirely. Right, so, talk to someone. I wasn't sure what to do. Talk to someone is our choice. Perhaps there would be someone in the inner courtyard to whom I could speak, I thought. Oh, I know what scene this is! Alright, I'll do it a second time because there's literally only 2 times you're going to see this scene. And we already did the first one. I didn't want to be spotted by the soldiers, so I hid for a moment and scanned the area. Good. Things were looking up. The only people in the courtyard were Okita and Saito-san. Ohayo, Okita. Ohayo, Saito-san. They showed no signs of surprise to my approach and turned lazily to greet me.
おはよう明るいような暗いような微妙な顔してるね
How did you guess?
何か思うところがあるという様子だ。俺たちに用があるなら言うといい。
Saito, always to the point. Well, I didn't want to impose or complain, but they had asked. I was hoping I could go look for my father soon.
それは無理だ。あんたの護衛に咲く人員は整っていない。
He hadn't exactly left me any room for argument. Is there really nothing you can do? It's not like I want to go very far. Just walk around the city is enough.
僕たちが巡察に出かけるとき同行してもらうのが一番手っ取り早いかな
Your rounds? I must have worn a confused expression because Okita's eyes narrowed and he proceeded to warn me.
言っておくけど巡察って命がけなんだよ僕たちが下手を打てば死ぬ大使だって出る老子に殺されたくないなら最低限自分の身くらい自分で守ってもらわないとね
Well, I do know a little of swordsmanship. I should be able to protect myself a little. Internally, though, I was frightened by the rounds. The last thing I wanted was to see another person die. I had seen enough of that to last a lifetime. I had to remind myself that fear couldn't rule me. No matter what, I had to find my father. Kyoto may be a dangerous place, but being paralyzed by fear would prevent me from ever finding him.
ならば俺が試してやろう。腰のものが飾りではないと証明してみせろ。
What?
加減はしてやる。遠慮は無用だ。どこからでも全力で打ち込んでこい。
But...
どうした雪村。その子たちはやはり単なる飾りなのか。
No, of course it's not. And I have taken lessons. I'm not lying. But I can't. I can't attack you. If my hand were to slip and I cut or stab you, not only would you be injured, but you could die. Excuse me, you don't have to laugh.
はじめくん相手に殺してしまうかもなんて不安になれる君は文句なしにすごいよ最高
Of course, I hadn't thought I could be one of the captains of the Shinsengumi, but still accidents happen! But Saito's very good at his job, I'm sorry. There's still a chance of someone getting hurt. Does that include yourself? If it's to help someone or to protect myself, I wouldn't think twice to draw my kodachi. But right now, I just can't get myself to do it. I can't just draw my sword on someone if there's even a small chance it could hurt them.
あんたの気持ちは分かった。だが自分の腕前を示しておけばいいこともある。足手まといにならなければ外に連れ出すための口添えにもなろう。どうしても刃を使いたくないというのなら、鞘を刀代わりに使うか、峰打ちで打ち込め。
I looked down at my sword. Even with the scabbard at the back of the blade, a misplaced strike could break bones. However, this was the opportunity I waited for. I don't want to miss this chance. I straightened up and looked straight into Saito-san's cold, calm eyes. Let's go. I settled into a fighting position. Should have said stance. The position fits too. Saito cocked his head slightly to one side and let out a small noise I took to be a laugh. His stance stayed defensive, no sign of fear, despite the fact that I was clearly ready to attack. Did he intend to leave his sword sheathed? I stopped the thought as it entered my mind. His words were to be trusted. Here I come! As I stepped forward, I let out a yell and lunged. The backside of my blade collided with the shoulder of a defenseless Saito. Or so I thought. In the blink of an eye, his face was only inches from mine, and I could feel the cold steel of his blade. This was the skill of a Shinsengumi captain. My body froze, and sweat dripped down my neck.
死を誇れ。あんたの剣には曇りがない。立ち筋には心が現れる。あんたは死に恵まれたのだろう。
He turned without another word, sheathed his sword, and began to walk away. I then noticed how wildly my heart was beating. What was that?
これいい子たちだね。ずいぶん年代物みたいだけど。
I looked over at Okita to see him holding my kodachi. I looked down at my hand where I had expected the sword to be. It was empty. I'm sorry. Thank you for picking up my sword. He nodded and tossed the sword to me. Can we not toss swords? I reached for it, but there was almost no strength left in my hands, and I nearly dropped it. The blow of Saito-san's sword and my own had left my hands numb. That strength seemed almost inhuman.
大丈夫？やっぱり驚いたかな。はじめくんの居合は達人級だからね。
I suppose I'm okay. But what's Iai? I felt like a bit of a fool asking, but they seemed to think it was a perfectly legitimate question.
対等状態から抜き打ちの一撃を放つ技だ。抜刀直後の刃が上向いているのはわかるな。
You wear your katana just like my kodachi then.
そうだ。昔の太刀は刃を下に向けて吊るしていたが、今の内刀は腰に刺すために上向きにする。本来であれば刀身が鞘から抜け切るまで待ち、刀を返して相手に刃を向ける手間がかかる。
And he could have easily taken my head with that blade. Had we faced an actual battle, I would have been dead sooner than I could prepare myself.
居合は片手で抜き打つことが多いから、結果的に威力が下がって 実用性は低いなんて言われることもあるんだけどね。
That's not a problem Saito-san has. It seems like he could easily finish an opponent with a single blow.
うん。もしはじめくんが本気だったら、君の子たちを弾いた後、即座に追撃してとどめを刺してたと思うよ。
The only reason I survived that encounter was because Saito-san had never intended to kill me. A thought that made me shiver. That's Iai then. And from a true master of the art. It left me speechless, trembling from its power. A feeling of horror began to creep and coil itself around my heart. The outside appearance of the Shinsengumi did not reflect their deadliness. It mesmerized me to witness men who could be gentle, yet killers.
落ち込むことはない。あんたは外を連れ歩くのに不便を感じない腕だ。
Really? I looked from Saito to Okita. He gave me a smile and brought his hands together in polite applause.
へえ、はじめくんのお墨付きか。これってかなりすごいことだよ。
Then, that means you can take me with you?
外出禁止令を出した人が許可するなら、いつでも連れて行ってあげるんだけどね。
Right. I'd had a feeling he was going to say something similar, so I simply nodded in agreement.
副長が大阪出張から戻るまで今しばし待たせることになる。すまないな。
Oh, you don't need to apologize, Saito-san. It's alright. Saito looked at me for a beat, then turned away. I thought, perhaps, he looked to me with pity.
巡察に同行できるよう俺たちからも副長に進言しておこう。
だからもう少しだけおとなしくしててね。遊び相手くらいにならなってあげるからさ。
Really? Okita smirked, and I couldn't tell if he was kidding or meant it, which is on par for Okita. I turned to look up to the sky, watching the white clouds gently drift apart, perhaps a shy omen. At least I had made some progress in my search, I told myself, however little. The wind had pushed the clouds off of Kyoto, and the brilliant blue sky they'd hidden sparkled above. Oh, do I want to do the scene? I don't want to do the scene. Let's skippy button. Oh, because I was calling us gullible.
掃除
This is all the same.
あほす
Da,
so-
da, da, da. The fighting over food.
どうただ
Listen, they're all protective of their food, including Saito's.
さ
Which is why he advises you. You know, you should probably fight for your food. Don't let anybody take it. And now we got the bad news.
okay.
San is hurt in Osaka.
剣カットカット
And to his sword arm, which is bad.
悪かった今これそれ
And we get told information we're not supposed to hear. We're supposed to put in the back of our mind, but we're not. Because it's gonna pop up now and again. Spicy water! Alright. March. They've returned. Son is more in his room, and even though I too spent days in the exile of my room, he seemed to take it much differently. Alright. This is the... We try to go find Hijikata, and we run into fucking Takeda. Because of course we have to find Takeda.
Listen,
Listen, I don't know how to make Takeda work. I have an idea for a route, but it cannot happen with Chizuru. Absolutely cannot. Zero chance of Takeda being a route for Chizuru. Quietly return to my room, which we have seen plenty of times. Oh. And we're being called. We could go wherever we want now. Okay, not go wherever we want, but we have choices. And, I'll do this one again, because we've seen it before already. But, we are gonna go to Fushimi! I'll do it again. My father might be at Fushimi. I want to find out. Even if he had already left Fushimi, there was a chance I could find a lead to his next location. I had already made up my mind. I will go to Terada Inn. Saito-san, would you mind if I come along with you?
わかった。
Thank you. Wow, I couldn't believe I might see father. My heart pounded heavily in my chest, and I did my best to keep my composure and bow. The yawning won't stop. The air was slightly humid, a thin dampness permeating despite no signs of rain.
あんたにとっては久方ぶりの外出だな。体調の方はどうだ?
It was an even longer while since I'd worn straw sandals, so blisters formed around my strap. I'm fine. I was eager to see my father was nearby, so I ignored any minor distractions or obstacles.
そうか。
It seemed Saito-san could read through my words, and he pretended to ignore my discomfort. We were heading to Fushimi, which is south of Kyoto. Hijikata-san mentioned my father was staying at the Terada Inn, but how do we even know if it's legit?
観察型からもたらされた情報だ。その宿に低発の乱暴医が逗留しているらしいとな。
A bald doctor. I grew restless with anticipation for Saito-san's words, and my heart couldn't contain itself. Could this person really be my father? How many bald men practice this field of study? Many?
先を急ぐぞ。疲れが出てきたら言え。
I had to make sure Saito-san doesn't see me as a burden, so I tucked my strap and hurried with him. Shortly after, we reached the Terada Inn located in Fushimi. Is my father really here? The inn itself looked well kept from the outside, and Fushimi stirred in the background. I clenched my throat nervously as I approached the door, but I waited for Saito-san to instruct me.
向かいに茶店があるな。入ることとしよう。
Wait, we're going through the tea shop? Why didn't he go in immediately to snoop around? I had so many questions, both for him and father. However, Saito-san seemed very calculated, scanning the area since we arrived, so I felt best to trust in his judgment. We entered the tea shop around the other side, and Saito-san began scooping the Terada Inn. Sato-san led me to a seat near the shop's balcony, and he whispered discreetly into my ear.
寺田屋はもともと薩摩藩御用達の宿と言われていてな。そのためか、西国の老子が立ち寄ることが多いと言われているのだ。
From the west? From what I knew, the Choshu domain was connected to Imperial Ronin from the west as well. What does that mean for my father to be here?
わからぬ。単なる偶然か、あるいは。
No, surely it's a coincidence. Sato-san looked at me, but didn't respond. The possibility of my father conducting business in Fushimi now pointed to an implicit relationship between him and the imperialists. But that couldn't be the case. My father explicitly told me he was visiting Kyoto under direct orders from the shogunate. Surely there was a reason for the confusion. What kind of reason would he have being here?
とはいえ、会津藩お預かりという我々の立場を考えると、不用意に寺田屋に立ち入るわけにもいかぬ。故にあんたにはここで宿に出入りする客の様子を確かめてもらおうと思うのだが、構わんか。
Huh? You want me to watch the inn? Sato-san wasn't my babysitter, but I'd appreciate some backup if something went wrong. Does Saito trust me enough for him to take his eyes off me? I didn't want to mess things up. Saito-san, ever the keen eye, spoke to comfort me.
俺は尊攘派の老師に顔を覚えられているかもしれん。ここで張り込みをするには差し障りがあろう。案ずるな。俺も近くで情報集めを行うつもりだ。何かあればすぐに駆けつける。
Alright, but I'm holding you to that.
それでは頼んだぞ。
Sato-san stood quickly and disappeared into the crowd, leaving me in my seat at the tea shop. I had to play the part, so I gathered my bearings and my new surroundings, and I approached a customer visiting the shop for questions. And hours pass. For a second, I had to remember I was there for a mission, but it felt like I was a spy in a play. I gathered some intel from customers confirming things of a bald doctor of Western medicine who frequented the Terada Inn until a few days ago. Unfortunately, the leads ran dry for anything during the past 2 or 3 days. Looks like we may have just missed him. I braced myself for the possibility that the lead was false, but even still, it was discouraging to come up with nothing. This was no time to be upset, though. Maybe he will return to the inn after finishing whatever business it was that took him away. Longing for a loved one to return is like waiting for a wound to heal, where the memory of the time before the pain seeps into every moment after. Where the memory of the time before the pain seeps into every moment after. With the approval of the tea shop's owner, I watched the happenings of the Terada Inn from the shop's balcony. Just then, a mysterious visitor approached me.
人間違うだが、誰かと待ち合わせか?
Huh? He caught me off guard. Had he been watching me? I turned around, nearly clutching my kodachi. He took a seat near me, staring at my hand as if to assure me from harm. Who was this man? He didn't look like anyone I'd ever seen before.
どうした?ぼーっとして。待ってるんじゃなきゃ誰か探してるのか?
No, I shook my head, unsure if he could be trusted. You see, well, I'm looking for my father.
おう、親父さんを。って、何か訳ありみたいだな。話してみろよ。もしかしたら力になれるかもしれないぜ。
I'm not sure. I contemplated whether or not this man would have known my father, or even the possibility that telling this man anything would jeopardize me. However, any information he could have may help. My father visited Kyoto on a business trip, but he suddenly ceased communications with me. Rumors surfaced that someone with his likeness came to this inn, and I had to see for myself.
あんた東国の生まれだろ
I came from Edo.
そいつは大変だなこっちの土地勘もないだろうしよしわかった俺も付き合ってやるよ
Well, How should I respond? Are you sure? I would appreciate it. Are you sure? I would appreciate some help.
困った時はお互い様ってな迷惑だって言われりゃどうしようもないが
It wouldn't trouble me at all. It would be great for you to help me. Thank you so much.
俺は斉谷梅太郎って言うんだ斉谷さんでも梅さんでも好きなように呼んでくれ
Okay, nice to meet you, Saitani. My name is Yukimura. It's very nice to meet you.
雪村ちゃんな名は体を表すなんて言うがそのまんまだな
You think my name matches my figure?
で下の名前はきっとあんたによく似合うかわいい名前なんだろうが
Well, cute is kind of a stretch. If I told him my name was Chizuru Yukimura, he might suspect me to be a woman.
まあいいか女っていうのはいくつも秘密があるっていうしな
After he said those words, I gasped and covered my mouth with my hands. Wait a minute, Saitani! I'm not a woman!
いやどこをどう見ても女だろそれとも俺をバカにしてるのか
Not taking you as a fool, but I'm pretty sure you know why. I would never take you for a fool!
まこんな可愛い娘がうろうろしてたら周りの男が放っておかないだろうし男の格好してるのは正解だと思うぜ
Thanks? The nonchalantness of his response made me practically faint from relief.
であんたの下の名前は何と言うんだ
Considering he's already figured out I'm a woman, I saw no harm in being honest with him about my name. My name is Chizuru Yukimura.
なるほど思った通りあんたにぴったりの可愛い名前だな
You think so?
であんたはどういう男が好みなんだ男と出かけるんならどういう場所がいい
Saitani? We're not talking about me right now. I thought you were going to help me look for my father.
あそういやそうだったなすっかり忘れてたぜ
Saitani's talent appeared to be in engaging seemingly endless conversations. Since he was the first person outside of the Shinsengumi with whom I'd spoken, I completely lost track of time. Luckily, Saito-san appeared to rescue me.
雪村待たせてすまなかったな今戻った
Hi, Saito-san.
なんだお仲間が帰ってきちまったのかそんじゃこれ以上の手助けは無用かな
Saitani stood up from his seat slowly, appearing dejected as if I'd broken his heart.
それじゃあな縁があればまた会おうぜ
Maybe. Before I could tell him goodbye, Saitani had wandered off. Saito-san focused on him, making sure he was out of earshot, and muttered quietly into my ear.
今の男は
He snuck up behind me earlier. Supposedly his name is Saitani. How did it go, Saito-san? Were you able to find anything useful about my father?
それについては帰る道すがら話すが、期待はせぬ方がいいとだけ言っておこう。
No. I felt my stomach drop from his words, and I assumed it meant the lead was false. I clutched my fist tightly, fighting back angry tears. I couldn't let Saito-san see my disappointment.
待っていてくれ。今あんたの分の感情を済ませてくる。
Saito-san and I headed back to the base, and I noticed fireflies grouping in circles as he updated me. The bald doctor staying at the inn was in fact someone different than my father, who just happened to match his description.
すまぬな。わざわざあんたに伏見まで同行してもらったというのに。
Oh, please, don't worry. Even though we learned nothing about my father, I was able to get some fresh air. That's nice. Still, I couldn't shake the worry for my father. Sato-san looked at me reassuringly, and his face lit brightly as he remembered something.
そういえば、先ほどあんたと話していた男のことだが。
Oh, you mean Saitani?
妙な男だったな。一見人好きするように見えたが、立ち居振る舞いには隙が全くなかった。
Huh? Huh. I guess I didn't notice. To me, Saitani didn't seem guarded at all, judging by how open he was with his stories. Was something troubling you about him, Saito-san? He nodded in response, looking away from my face.
剣の心得がある者は目を見ればわかる。おそらく脱藩浪人の類だろう。この辺りで寝泊まりしているとすれば、薩摩や西国にゆかりがあるものかもしれん。
A Ronin, huh? He seemed too jovial to be a lordless samurai, especially the ones causing trouble in Kyoto. For what it seemed like in our conversation, he was the furthest thing from a warrior.
何にせよ、気を許さぬ方がいいだろうな。昨今の今日の治安を考えると、用心に用心を重ねておくに越したことはあるまい。
Understood. I wonder who this Saitani man really is. Was. Ugh. My first adventure into Fushimi taught me many things, and I could only wait what came next. Well, next is July, which means... which means we're closer to the Ikeda incident. Or Ikeda incident. However you want to call it. And we can skip this. Basically, we're being told that we can't go around anymore because it has become very, very dangerous. But we're still given choices on what to do. So what do we do? We're remaining in the compound. That's what we're doing. We're skipping this. We have a top with sun on sun right now, don't we? Which we don't need to see again.
No.
It's on a sun. We're just gonna tell you, to take care of yourself and rest and all that jazz. Because you got an injured arm. Ba, 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 ba. It was later that evening the compound exploded with activity.
超意地
We got a trader, a Choshu, and we're extracting information from them, and then there's a raid, and we're getting ready to do the said raid, but we're not gonna go because we're staying in the compound with Sun and Sun. And the answer for this would be... Yawning, absolutely yawning's the answer, but why me? And then the next answer shall be at some point. But anyway, we're gonna become a messenger with Yamazaki, and we're gonna have to run like hell. And we're running! And people are following us. And the answer to this is Yamazaki, you should go! Even though I have absolutely no skills in the sword, and no way in hell can I defend myself or keep them from hurting me. But Yamazaki has our back, we're running! And we ran straight into these guys. I very nearly began to cry with relief. Hijikata-san was not dressed in the usual light blue jacket, but rather a bright white uniform to be seen in dimly lit places. Instead, I simply collapsed as Harada reached out to grab me.
大丈夫か勝手に豚書から出てると土方さんに怒られるぞ
I grabbed a hold of Harada's hand and pulled my body to its feet. I wanted to tell him I had permission to leave and explain that it was all right for me to be there, but I was so winded that I could barely speak. Besides, I wasn't sent to Hijikata-san to make excuses. I took a deep of a breath as my shuttered lungs could manage before speaking. They're meeting at Hikida! Suddenly, Hijikata-san's expression changed.
本命はあっちか
I nodded rapidly.
敵の会合場所は池田屋であると
Hijikata-san gestured towards me.
三男さんなら脱走を見過ごさねえつまりこいつは早朝命令で豚書を出たってことだ
よく俺らと合流できたな今日の地理には詳しくないんだろ
Yamazaki. I finally got some of my breath back, and I did my best to tell them what had happened.
合図や諸次第はどうなったもう池田屋に行ってるのか
I just shook my head. Hijikata-san thought for a moment, then spoke.
斎藤と原田は隊を率いて池田屋へ向かえ俺はよそで別件を処理しておく
Harada and Saito-san nodded curtly, then turned to their business.
あんたもこれ以上の単独行動は危険だ俺たちか副長かどちらかに同行しろ
I still lacked the breath to respond properly, so I simply nodded. We both knew they couldn't leave me here, but whom should I accompany? For once, not Hijikata! As fast as we could manage, we ran through the silent streets of Kyoto towards the Ikeda Inn. We were nearly a block away when we heard the faint cries of men engaged in battle. None of the Shinsengumi remained outside, but I heard a voice ring out from inside that sounded much like Kondo-san's.
俺は正面から突入する
分かった俺は裏に回るぜ
They each gave each other a curt nod, then turned to lead their men. I couldn't stand there by myself. I decided to follow Saito. I watched Harada and his men as they ran around towards the back of the inn and turned to Saito-san. Can I go with you, Saito-san? He glanced back at me, then quickly turned away.
俺の前には出るな戦うにも守るの邪魔なだけだ
He was even colder than usual, and I was suddenly aware of just how much of a burden I was. I'm sorry. Bleh. Perhaps it would be best for me to stay put and be quiet, so as to cause no one any further trouble.
あんたに死なれても寝覚めが悪いが俺の仕事はあんたを守ることじゃない
He sounded annoyed, but it didn't seem like it was with me. He looked towards the inn, his eyes narrowed.
突入する。各自俺に続け。
Then we charged into the Ikeda Inn. The warm, coppery stench of blood hit me like a fist to the stomach. With a single blow, Saito dispatched a man near the door, his pace barely slowing.
斉藤君、来てくれたか。これは心強い援軍だな。
Kondo-san gave a grin as he spoke, then turned to split a Ronin on his sword. With his free hand, he gestured at us to stay back.
俺は大丈夫だ。2階の掃除を見てやってくれ。
よう、斉藤。残念だったな。美味しいとこはもらっちまったぜ。
今日は譲ってやる。
Nagakura came out from the back and he hung his exposed sword out and laughed in his usual way. Maybe he had one intense battle. There was blood all over his uniform, and it seemed like his left hand was dripping with blood too. You're hurt!
切り合いだからな。そりゃ怪我もするさ。中庭に倒れてる平助なんざひでえもんだ。
That's not funny! Nagakura grinned at me as Saito-san began barking orders to his men.
この池田屋から誰一人逃がすな。手加減無用。手向かいする者はすべて切れ。
Saito-san let our injured evacuate. His voice is steel and the grimace on his face betrayed his emotions. Oh. That was when I finally understood. It wasn't anger I saw in him, it was concern. He was worried for men of the Shinsengumi. We need the "the" in there. The frustration of not being able to fight with them, of not being at their side. That was why he'd been in such a hurry.
怪我人の救護はできるか。あんたは医者の娘だろう。
I can. The words were out of my mouth before I realized they probably needed something of a disclaimer. Well, I mean, I can do first aid.
それで十分だ。頼む。
To me, it seemed only natural to care about one's friends, but I'd always seen Saito-san as distant. He hadn't struck me as the sort to care for anyone, so I never even guessed that he hadn't struck me as the sort to care for anyone, so I never even guessed that could have been a source of his frustration. The truth was, he wasn't nearly as cold as I thought. As I watched him dive into battle, his sword a light of hope for his comrades in arms, I wondered how I could have ever thought so. Finally, the sun rose in the black sky, and it lasted 2 hours. We had some casualties on both sides, more so in the Choshu, and blah. July. Is this the Iba moment? Let me see. Do I hear leaves? Yes, it is. I've seen this plenty of times. Skip button.
So,
Da, 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 da. My brain is shutting down.
おいそ
なあん
じゃあ
Alright. And now we're gonna see him off. And then it's August, and then there's a round with I think Nagakura and Harada.
つしょ
Yep.
で
いい
な
そういう
いあい
さあな
ど
超あ
そ
The answer is it's one to come, I think. Yep. My mind was made up. I nodded to Harada. I want to help. And I'm gonna skip this. Da, 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 tea for everybody!
いいの会津
Oh,
ついに会津藩も
well,
我らの働きをお認めくださったのだな。
I'm glad I skipped the sound effect, because that one was loud.
ちょ
For some ungodly reason.
起き
Da, 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 da,
うわ
da, da,
So-
da, da, da. And now we're gonna go to
け
彼女
Hamaguri incident. That's the incident. We're gonna go up to
Yes,
up here. Blah, 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 words. Anyway, we're going. Like last time.
会津
うち
I will read this for Harada's instead.
取りつ
Maybe. I don't know. Anyway, there's miscommunication in the Aizu. The Aizu has very piss poor communication between its
ここ局
sectors.
だが
いや我が
そうぞ
Very yawny.
ど会津
上
や
And then in the morning, we get woken up by Cannon.
行く
ま
し
敵、うん、あんたもい
So Hamaguri Gate, and we're gonna skip all this as well until we get to our choices.
Yeah.
Da 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 da.
Tem-
We'll get that some point.
さい
はい
それ手間頂点つい
なるほどな
現
はい
残り
Alright, what are our choices? We go to Hamaguri Gate. Yeah. I decided to remain at Hamaguri Gate with Saito-san. Before long, the rest of the Shinsengumi was gone, and it was time for us to begin our own mission.
まずは新選組の者として会津の責任者へ挨拶が必要か
In all the excitement, I completely forgot that the Shinsengumi were ordered to stay with the reserves. Instead, we chose to march to battle. Saito-san was probably right to try and smooth things over with the Aizu as soon as possible.
よろしければ自分が行きます上層部も混乱していますから今回の我々の行動を咎めることもないと思います
わかった会津藩の対応は山崎に一任する問題が生じたなら俺を呼んでくれ
Yamazaki bowed once, then turned on his heel and disappeared. The area near the Hamaguri Gate was filled with warriors. I could see some men from the Aizu domain, and perhaps some men from Satsuma as well. They appeared to be arguing over something. We've been looking around the area to get the lay of the land when we sensed something unpleasant and went to investigate. That was when we found the confrontation between the Aizu and the Satsuma. What are they arguing about?
おそらくは手柄の取り合いだろう愚かなことだ
Oh. The words were barely out of my mouth when one of the Satsuma men noticed us.
何かと思えば新選組ではないかこんな者どもまで招集していたとはやはり会津藩はふぬけばかりだな 浪人の手を借りねば戦うこともできんのか？
What? I could see the faces of the Shinsengumi stiffen, and more than one hand moved towards the sword. Saito-san, however, was as implacable as ever.
よまいごとに耳を貸すな。ただ己の務めを果たせ。
He swept his cool gaze slowly over the men, looking each man in the eye. They shifted restlessly, but their hands dropped from their swords.
己薩摩、我が合図を愚弄するつもりか。
His face was bright red and his sword shook as he held it at the ready. If something wasn't done soon, that sword was likely to start spilling blood. Before anyone from the Satsuma could respond, a tall man stepped through them and out into the space between the two factions.
なんだ、貴様が相手になるか。
With a yell, the soldier threw himself forward, raising his sword to anticipate a deadly cut. Saito-san dashed forward almost too fast to see and stopped before the charging man.
やめた方がいい。あんたとそのものでは腕が違いすぎる。
池田屋では迷惑をかけましたな。確か東堂という名の青年にお相手いただきましたが、怪我の治りが良くないのであれば加減ができずにすまなかったと伝えてください。
池田屋で平助を倒したのはあんたか。なるほど。それならば合点が行く。
If Saito-san had even heard the man's apology, he showed no signs of it.
大方薩摩藩の密偵としてあの夜も長州勢の動きを探っていたのだろう。
The man simply shrugged and tilted his head to the side almost quizzically. Sato-san took a step toward him. The tip of Saito-san's sword was only a hair's breadth from the man's forehead. He drew it so fast, I saw no blur of silver as it left the scabbard. Unperturbed, the man glanced down at Saito-san.
あんたは新選組にあだをなした。俺から見れば平助の敵ということになる。
しかし今の私には君たち新選組と戦う理由がありません。
He replied as calmly as if they had been enjoying tea together. Saito-san said nothing and his sword did not move. Was Saito-san really that angry? I could certainly see why he would have been. But this was not the time to settle grudges. Still, he was a tough man to read. What was I to do? Well, trust him, apparently. Saito was also well aware of his duties, and was not the sort of man to allow emotion to compromise his decisions, as shown by his ordering of his men to stand down after being grievously insulted. I didn't know what it was, but he had a plan. He must have somehow sensed my decision, because for a moment his eyes flickered to me and he smiled.
俺とて騒ぎを起こすつもりはない。この場はあんたたちと目的を同じにしているはずだ。だが、侮辱に侮辱を重ねるのであれば、我ら新選組も会津藩も動かざるを得まい。
The tall man from the Satsuma nodded deeply.
こちらが浅はかな言動をしたことは事実。この場にいる薩摩藩を代表して謝罪しよう。
I didn't mean to hit the mic. Sato-san returned the man's nod and slid his sword back into its scabbard. The Satsuma men seemed displeased with how things turned out, but whoever the tall man was, none of them dared to speak out against him. Now I understood what Saito-san had intended to do. By forcing the Satsuma to apologize, he had allowed the Aizu to save face by directly confronting the issue. He had been able to avoid any bloodshed. Because the Satsuma man understood his intentions, he apologized. Regardless, I couldn't help but sigh, relieved that we avoided another pointless fight.
私としてもこの場での戦いは避けたかった。そちらが引いてくれたことに感謝する。
He bowed deeply.
私は天霧久寿と申す者。次には見えるとき、互いが協力関係にあることを祈ろう。
His introduction finished. He turned and walked slowly back through the ranks of the Satsuma, towering above them as he went. Amagiri is fucking tall. Saito-san, you never intended to fight him, did you? There was a short silence. Saito-san looked coiled inside himself, staring in the direction Amagiri walked towards before speaking.
居合で脅せば容易に引くかと思っていたが、あの者には俺の剣筋が読めていたようだな。
Huh? Saito-san practiced Iai, a sword style that focused on drawing a blade and striking in a single stroke. Amagiri made no attempt to dodge his blow. How would he have known that Saito-san intended to stop just before the blow landed?
薩摩にも厄介な相手がいるようだ。話の通じる点は救いかもしれんが。
I wasn't sure if Saito-san was talking to me or himself, and before I could ask, he turned and walked away. We returned to the Hamaguri gate to await Yamazaki's return, but there was little else to do. After that incident, there were no battles. However, the tension remained unabated. Was it possible for the Satsuma and Aizu to find a common ground and coexist peacefully? It seemed like imagining such a world would be an impossible dream. And now we learn about the Hamagari Rebellion, Choshu extremists. There was little to be done, and the ones that escaped set the town on fire. Also, we learn about Kazuma, Amagiri, and Shiranui. But they're not allies at all. And Choshu took their own life, or died, or set the town on fire. Set Kyo on fire, which is a shame. September 1864. What is this? Several civilian houses were burned during the rebellion. Kyo needed to be rebuilt, but it looked as if the process would take a while. I did my best to look for my father while we were out on patrol, but try as I might, I couldn't find even a hint of his whereabouts. September 1864. Saito and his men had this particular shift, so I joined them. The heat in the city was almost unbearable, as if we were inside of an oven. There was a group of people sitting listlessly at the side of the road. I stopped. They probably lost their homes in the fire. Saito-san. He turned around and looked at me placidly.
どうした？歩き疲れたか？
Oh, no, nothing like that. I was just, hoping to talk to those people. Would that be okay? They might know something about my father. He frowned just slightly. Is that not okay?
いや、構わん。ただあまり時間は割いてやれん。それでもよければ聞いてこい。
Thank you. I jogged over towards a small crowd of people who looked up as I approached. Excuse me, but I'm looking for someone. He's bald and... I talked to several different people, but none of them knew anything about my father. Was he even still in Kyo? Could he have gotten involved in the Hamakuri Rebellion and lost his life? No. That wasn't possible. That isn't possible. That wasn't possible. Ah! He had to be alive. I wiped sweat from my face and desperately tried to convince myself that it was true. Saito-san was walking in front of me when he suddenly turned around and spoke.
大丈夫かずいぶん暑そうだが
Oh, yes, I'm fine. I didn't want him to worry, so I smiled brightly.
そうか具合が悪くなったらすぐに言え無理をして倒れられても困る
Of course, thank you. I know the only reason he was being so attentive was because Ichikata-san gave him orders to take care of me, but it was still nice that he was making sure I was okay. What about you? Are you hot? You're wearing black and you've got a jacket on.
暑さ自体は耐えられぬほどではないただ
Oh, it said he's wearing black, but that's... I feel like that's a localization thing because between this sprite and the original sprite, Saito-san was actually wearing a black kimono underneath all that, but now it's been changed to a kind of navy-ish blue. So technically that sentence doesn't make sense anymore, but in some media, blue can replace black, so it kind of makes sense and it kind of also doesn't make sense. Is what? He frowned almost imperceptibly and laid a hand on his sword.
今日の夏は湿気が多く気を抜くと刀が錆びてしまうそれだけが心配だ早く秋になってくれぬものか
Got it. So Saito does not like summer but prefers autumn. He was more worried about his sword than himself. It must be really important to you.
己が身を守る爪だからな
As he spoke, Saito-san pulled up short and turned to look at the building in front of which we stood. It appeared to be a sword shop. He was staring at the sword in display, his gaze almost hungry. It was like watching a child who just discovered a new toy he couldn't resist. Saito-san. He twitched a little in surprise and looked at me.
ああすまない今は巡察中だったな急いで屯所に戻らねば
He composed himself and walked back towards the rest of his men. You looked really excited. Was that a nice sword? He drew himself up a little as he began to speak.
備前長船兼光刀といえば備前刀備前刀といえば長船という言葉もあるほど備前には優秀な刀工が多い今日現存する刀は備前刀が一番多いと言われていて
Oh. Uh-oh. He continued to talk about swords for some time. There it is. There it is. Listen, you want to have Saito-san talk to you? Ask him about swords. He won't stop talking. This man will religiously clean his swords, and I am not kidding on that. He will. To be honest, I never saw him so talkative before. It seemed a little strange that swords brought him out of his shell, but it was nice.
どうかしたか笑われるようなことを言ったつもりはないがもしや今の講釈に誤りでもあったか
Oh, no, not at all.
では 何故笑っていたのだ。
What was I going to say? I think I understand. I don't really know much about swords, but I think I do kind of understand how you feel about them. I laid one hand on my kodachi as I spoke. I cherish my sword too. Saito-san's mouth twitched into a word genuine smile.
あんたもその子たちに惹かれているということか。ならばその子たちも必ずやあんたの思いに応えてくれるだろう。
His tone was as flat as ever, but there was a look in his eyes that I'd never seen before. It was different from when he spoke up in meetings or issued orders to his men. I could see how much he cared about his swords.
さて、急いで屯所に戻らねばな。思った以上に時間がかかってしまった。
You're right. I nodded, but Saito-san suddenly stopped. I looked over and his face seemed strained. Uh-oh.
今、俺が刀に見とれて時間を無駄にしたことは、その。
Don't worry, I won't tell Ichikata-san what happened. He seemed to relax.
そうか。俺もまだまだ未熟だな。タイムよりも己の興味を優先させてしまうとは。
Saito. Saito. He hunched his shoulders and walked more quickly. Watching him made me think of how he'd look when he stopped in front of the shop earlier. He'd been so excited, almost like a child. It made me smile.
どうした？何を笑っている？
Oh, nothing important. Just remembering something.
何を思い出していたのかは聞かずともわかる。大方俺が店先の刀に見入ってしまい、タイムをおろそかにしたことを笑っていたんだろう。
No, I wasn't laughing at you.
弁解などいらん。先ほどの所業はあんたに笑われても仕方あるまい。
Oh, come on.
これでも反省はしている。同じ過ちは二度と繰り返さん。
He looked away from me with an attitude that could only be described as sulking. It wasn't that I'd meant to mock him. There had just been something about his childlike glee that was amusing and cute, in a way. But no doubt telling him that would only upset him more.
急ぐぞ。副長が屯所で我々の報告を待っているはずだ。
Oh, right. Saito-san was a quiet, taciturn man, which many people interpreted as a show of coldness. But when swords were the subject of conversation, he lit up. And he pouted when I mentioned this. It was a side of him I'd never guessed at, and something about seeing it cheered me up. Oh boy, chapter 3! Oops. The dawn of the new year has arrived! We can skip a lot of this. Oh, we brought tea for everybody again. Tea! We skipped straight to... Yeah, this, okay. We have seen this so many times. Way too many times. Takeda is a kiss up.
そんとこん
こん
そんな
I get it at some point.
むな
あ
こんいと
や
Mhm.
だ
The setting sun glowed through the windows with a warm, rich maroon, an ominous kind of beauty. It's cold. I came out into the yard and my body stopped due to the cold. Guess spring will take a while. Oh. I wasn't too fond of Ito, but it was Sun and his condition that's really worried me. I really wish his arm would just heal. That arm, or perhaps more accurately the lack of it, was the source of his change in personality. Still, as nice as it would be for Sun-san's arm to simply start working again, that seemed like the stuff of a child's fable, not real life. That was when I remembered.
薬でも何でも使ってもらうしかないですね。三男さんも納得してくれるんじゃないかな。
掃除めったなこと言うもんじゃねえ。幹部が羅刹になってどうするんだよ。
Okuta was talking about the Shinsengumi having some secret serum back in the day. Judging from how they spoke of it, it's an item with circumstances. But... And I was not to know about the existence of that serum. If I were to look into it without approval, there was no doubt that I'd be punished. But I'm the daughter of a doctor. I'm pretty sure I had more knowledge of medicine than the men of the Shinsengumi did. Alright, we're just gonna push Yamazaki to the side for a second. I returned to my room. Perhaps it would be best to just return to my room. I didn't want to get in trouble for wandering around, but most of all, I didn't want to find myself in anyone's way. Even though I was worried about San, maybe it's for the best for me to stay out of the way. Just as the sun dipped below the horizon, the compound exploded with activity. My worry increased tenfold. Did something happen? I waited for a few moments for the activity to settle down, but it did no such thing. Something was wrong, and I could feel it. Anyway, now we continue. It's a suicide, and now we get to be told absolutely everything of what our father was doing with the Shinsengumi and the Furies and the Water of Life.
今なんにあれちくただあれちくし
Ba, ba, ba,
おしゃべ
ba.
つったのまあくす今度来いそんな心配
わかっ
最強ゆ
Nope. Anyway, where should I go? Go to the inner courtyard. That's what we're doing. Winds chilled the courtyard. The candle flickered. Who is messaging? Okay, we're fine. The air was still and the whole place was silent. It was hard to believe the chaos of the common room was only moments ago. Saito-san stood in a daze, gathering thoughts as he watched the stars shiver in the distance.
中に戻っていた方がいいのではないか。ここは冷えるぞ。
I'm fine, I'm not cold. Saito-san stared at me. His expression was blank, and he seemed to be calculating, but alas, he simply looked back to the sky.
剣に生きる者にとって、己が腕は生きる意味そのもの。それを失ってしまえば、 自ら命を絶つのもまた道理か。
I saw the white air of Saito-san's breath as he muttered to himself.
だが、あの薬に手を出すほど追い詰められているとは思わなかった。今まで我々が見ていたのは、あくまでも三男さんの一部に過ぎなかったということだろうな。
Saito-san. Saito-san wasn't the best at expressing how he felt, but it was clear his words were tinged with pain. I could sense he was deeply remorseful for not being able to stop Sun-san. What's going to happen to him? Between us followed a period of silence, and I was mad at myself for asking such a question. There was no way for Saito-san to know the answer. Soon, though, he quietly responded, and it was no surprise to see him disengaged. And it was no surprise to see him become disengaged.
新選組の総長が狂ったことが公になるくらいなら、三男さんには死んでもらった方がいいだろうな。
What? My voice cracked, but Saito-san scarcely blinked. Could you live without Saito-san? If you were to be given orders to assist with Sanan-san's beheading...
俺の解釈ならば、さして苦しませることなく、三男さんをあの世へ送ることができる。
Oh, Jesus.
そうせねばならぬのなら、誰であろうと切る。それだけの話だ。
A chill grazed my spine, but not from the night air. I couldn't believe it. Is this what it takes to be a Shinsengumi warrior? He could probably kill me at any moment. If it were called upon him, and I realized just how expendable I was. God, my brain was all over the place on that one. I'm going to read that again. He could probably kill me at any moment, if it were called upon him. And I realized just how expendable I was.
だが、できるなら仲間は殺したくない。あれは寝覚めの悪いものだ。
The night I met Saito-san, I'd watch him kill a man, whom he may have known, without blinking. Or maybe that's how it looked to me. I thought him cold at the time, but I realize now how much pain he must have been in. There's no way it would be painful. There's no way it wouldn't be painful. Moving together with hope of sharing a vision. Just then, I sensed someone approaching us. I gasped and turned around.
さっきから広間の方が騒がしいが、何かあったのか？
まだ起きていたのか。
あれだけ騒がれてのんきに寝てられると思うのか？で、何があった？他の連中にも聞いてみたが、要領を得ない答えしか返ってこなくてな。
Kondo-san made sure to tell us to keep Ito and his gang from finding out what happened tonight. How were we supposed to play it off? Panicked, I looked at Saito-san.
今の段階ではあんたに明かすことはできぬ。
おお、幹部の俺にもか。
俺とて事態を完全に把握しているわけではない。今の状況を下手に明かしてもいらぬ誤解を招くだけだ。明日になれば局長や副長が改めて説明の場を設けてくださるはずだ。それまで待て。
なるほど。
Miki shrugged at his answer and shuffled off without saying another word. Was that all right? Do you think Miki was satisfied with that?
そこまで愚鈍ではあるまい。かの者は伊藤さんの実弟だからな。
I thought so.
とはいえ、無用な騒ぎを起こしたがるたちだとも思えぬ。 気は許さぬ方がいいだろうが、無用な警戒もまたいらぬはずだ。
Sato-san's reserved nature made it difficult for people to observe him, but he used this to his advantage and seemed to be astute when watching others.
何にせよ今は三男さんの無事を祈るだけだ。
You're right. Above us sang the wind of the gentle night, its song catching the ears of the star-filled sky. And so the long night broke. We can skip this. Hey, Ito, you're not supposed to be here.
そう
伊藤、はい、今です。
今夜のお呼ばれ。
伊藤さんは幹部あの人絡みで。
Sato-san is alive, but is now fury and can't be in the daylight, so he suggested that they should just play him off as dead, because that's the only way he can actually live.
なんだ。
薬
よし、雪も。
And we moved. Let's give me this. It was unnerving. Okay. I know what this is. You're loud, Heska.
平気だよ。さ
おい。
やめ。
いや。
Oh, I know what the next choice is, I think.
Yep.
Oh, I know what it is. I know what it is now. My brain realized what it is the next scene. Look at that. Now we're here. Now we're gonna be escorting the Shogun to his castle.
はとも。
な、
たい。
な、
そ。
なんせ
ああ、
いず
そういうお
君
まあ、調子。
よし、お前コキ。
And we're being a messenger girl. I need the air on. Air on! As we get through this. We're gonna get through this with Mickey, and then we're gonna get through with the demons. They're here. They're here for me. And then a blade flickered through the night.
おいおい、合いびきならもう少し色気のある場所を選んだ方がいいんじゃねえか。ま
たお前たちか。田舎の犬は目端だけは聞くと見える。
それはこちらのセリフだ。
Harada! Saito-san! My legs almost collapsed as if the now shattered tension was the only thing keeping me standing. I teetered backwards, my balance momentarily lost. A strong hand caught me and pulled me back, its grip hard as steel.
下がってる。
Hijikatsu-san. One hand guided me around him as the other drew his sword.
将軍の首でも取りに来たかと思えば、こんなガキ一人に一体何の用だ。
将軍の貴様らも今はどうでもいい。これは我ら鬼の問題だ。
鬼だと。
His eyes narrowed. Hijikata-san seemed perplexed by Kazuma's statement, as if contemplating the possibility of its truth.
こいつの面を拝むのは金門の変以来だな。
腐れんってとこか。大して嬉しくもねえがな。
再会という意味ではこちらも同じくだ。だが
我々の邪魔立てをするつもりですか。ならば
The tension was so thick in the air that I could scarcely breathe. They were a power keg ready to explode. Even the slightest movement could set them off. It wasn't like I could do much. But still I wanted to help them, so I grabbed my sword.
副長たちの心配は無用だ。
Yamazaki? What did you...
副長の命だ。君はこのまま俺が屯所まで連れて行く。
Then you're telling me to run away?
その通りだ。君がここにいてもできることは何もない。
I mean, he may be right, but... Stay! I'm going to stay here.
雪村か。君は状況を理解していない。ここに残って何ができる。
I don't know what staying here might... I know that staying here might not be the smartest idea, but... They called me a demon and told me to come with them. I still didn't know what they meant. I needed to know the truth.
君にも譲れない理由があるのだろうな。だが、それは俺も同じこと。副長の命を遂行する。それが俺にとって己を貫くということだ。
What? Yamazaki reached for my arm, ready to take me with him by force, but... The gun Shiranui held was pointed towards Yamazaki.
へいへい待てって。お姫さんはここに残るっつってんだろ。振られたのに邪魔してんじゃねえよ。
With his spear, Harada tried to pierce Shiranui in the heart, but... Shiranui easily dodged his attack, his strike.
時に拙速は高知に勝りますが、知らぬいの手の速さも考えものですね。
そういうあんたも止めなかったようだが。
Saito-san and Amagiri maneuvered nearly into striking distance of one another. Saito-san drew his sword and attempted to strike at Amagiri.
甘い。
Amagiri saw through his movements instantly and dodged the incoming blade.
くそ、なんなんだこいつら。
Ichikata-san screamed, his voice frilled with frustration. What do we do? We cried for backup. I wasn't helping at all. I was utterly useless in a fight and I knew it. What could I do then? There was only one thing. Yamazaki, we should go fight Kondo-san. Just when I screamed that,
これ以上よそ者を立ち入らせるつもりはありません。
Amagiri stared at me. Then suddenly...
待て！貴様の相手はこの俺だ。
Saito-san's hand clasped the hilt of his sword as he walked slowly before Amagiri.
下がっている雪村。奴らの目的はあんただ。そこから動くな。
I responded. Got it. わかった。I took a few steps back.
それでいい。あとは任せろ。
聞いてはいただけませんか。金門の時と同様、私には君と戦う理由がない。
あいにくだが、俺にはあんたと戦う理由がある。
His voice was low and controlled, but I thought I sensed a current of tension beneath it. Saito-san then moved slowly to interdict Amagiri's approach. Was he protecting me?
あくまで邪魔をするつもりですか。いいでしょう。
The giant man flexed his hands, settling into a crouched stance. Saito-san's hand tightened on his sword. For several long moments, neither of them moved. The air was thick with barely contained intensity, and the ground could tear asunder, swallowing us. Seconds felt like hours as the two opponents regarded one another. A shadow drifted across the moon, and the street briefly darkened. There was a blur of movement. When light returned, Saito-san and Amagiri stood some distance apart, backs to one another, as if they met for a single blow and continued forward. I had no idea what had just happened. Their moves were just too fast to keep up with. A breath of wind stirred my hair.
今ので仕留めるつもりだったのですが、ね。
お互い様だ。
Neither man looked the least bit surprised or concerned that his intended death blow was avoided. Saito-san's eyes narrowed to piercing blue slits as he turned to face his opponent. Amagiri turned as well, matching Saito's intensity. They stood like that for a moment, until Amagiri's glare softened. He didn't leave his fighting stance, but his arms dropped to his sides. I stood as still as I could. Both men stepped back, their fight clearly finished.
これ以上の戦いは無意味ですな。長引いて今日が乗っても困るでしょう。
それ、俺様への当てつけか？こう見えても引き際はここ。
Anyway, skipping this because it's not all the same. I don't know why they wanted me. And these two have an argument about what the fuck just happened. We move on to the next chapter. Or at least the next part. Matsumoto Sensei's here!
Oh!
As much as I love to watch the beefcake be a beefcake with skipping. Hey, Yamazaki. The answer is yes, please. As always, it's yes, please. Yamazaki, please get the good doctor of Matsumoto Sensei. Anyway, we're skipping a lot. We're skipping all the way through to the cleaning. Everything here, we're skipping. It's Anan-san.
我を試験いいからまたこ
ラララララララ
まあこのそあえな切りめまずそれしょ
Anyway, cleaning.
おど
まそ
いだ
原田も人
確かお今度先
Ba 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 ba
Butso.
ba ba ba
Ah.
ba 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 ba. Anyway, clean everything. Alright. Skipping all this.
おい
お
いや
片
Anyway, we see these two leave, and I'm worried about Okita. What were Okita and Matsumoto-sensei doing? Was Okita going to talk to the doctor about his cough? He was coughing an awful lot lately, now that I thought about it. Was he alright? I decided to follow them. Unfortunately, I waited too long, and by the time I made my way outside, they were gone. I think they went this way.
おや雪村君誰かを探しているんですか
Shimada, have you seen Okita and the doctor?
沖田君たちなら中庭の方に行ったようですが
Thank you.
急ぎすぎて転ばないよう気をつけてくださいそれでは俺はこれで
Goodbye. I saw him walk off, and it got me to thinking. The courtyard. Should I try and catch up? Or should I go around the back and reach the courtyard before they did? Apparently it's go around. I ducked to the narrow path that ran around the back, and soon I found myself at the courtyard. I hid myself in the shadows, waiting. Okita and the doctor appeared only moments after I hid silently.
結論から言おうお前さんの病は老害だ
For just a second, my heart stopped. A shiver ran down my spine, and suddenly I felt very, very cold.
なんだやっぱりあの有名な死病ですか
Okita's.
でも面と向かって言われるとさすがに困ったな
老害の一番の薬は西洋だ新選組は離れて精のつくものを食べてゆっくり体を休めなきゃいかん
それはできません
そうせんと体は悪くなるばかりだぞ今はそうやって平気なふりができてもいずれ布団から起き上がることすらできなくなる
じゃあその時までここにいますよ血を吐きながらそれでも刀を取ります
なぜそれほどまでここにいたいんだね
僕は新選組の剣ですからここにいることが僕の全てなんです新選組の前に立ちふさがる敵を切るただそれだけなんですよ
お前さんの覚悟は分かった
Okita sounded cheery, but I was listening in a state of shock. Okita is going to die? I felt like I wanted to faint, but I stayed strong and remained standing.
先生近藤さんたちには言わないでくださいよ約束ですからね
まあどうしても言えないことってのはあるだろうな私もあの子に打ち明けていないことがあるんだ行動さんが上位派の過激浪士連中と行動を共にしてるかもしれんなんてなとてもじゃないが伝えられんよ
The news of Okita's illness had me so scattered. I almost cried out at this new piece of intelligence. My father, working with nationalists? There was suddenly someone behind me. A hand slipped over my mouth before I could react, and a freezing sensation made my spine shiver.
静かにしていろ。
It was a calm, cool voice that I'd heard many times before, although never from quite so close. Saito-san? My body relaxed. The body behind me was Saito-san, not some anonymous assailant.
そのまま動くな。掃除は気配に悟い。
I nodded my head as much as I dared. His hand over my mouth made me too nervous to breathe. Saito-san's presence next to me was silent and sharp, like a blade in the night. It seemed like hours passed before Okita and Matsumoto-sensei finally left.
斉藤さんの起点がなければ危ないところでした。
You were here too! You too. Shit. Yamazaki! How long was he? No. Something told me that would be a foolish question. He was probably watching the whole time. Gomene. If you hadn't stopped me, Saito-san, I probably would have given myself away.
いや、俺の方こそぶしつけな真似をしてしまってすまなかった。掃除に気づかれずに済んだのはあんたのおかげだ。礼を言う。
No, not at all. There was the briefest hint of a smile in his eyes as he spoke, and then it disappeared.
それで、掃除のことだが、先ほど話していた病の件に関しては、聞かなかったことにしてくれ。
He wasn't asking me to keep my mouth shut per se, but rather to forget what I'd seen and heard had ever happened. But why?
あの方が病に倒れるとなれば内外に与える影響が大きすぎます。それに老師たちが勢いづくだけでなく局長や副長にもご心配をかけるでしょうから。
He was right. Even I could understand that. But I couldn't forget the sight of Okita smiling. Even with the seriousness of this news.
病に関しては我々が対処する。あんたが気にすべきことではない。
But
関わるなと言っているのだ。いいな。
at the end of the day, I was still only a guest. This sad reminder resurfaced once more. I may live among the Shinsengumi, but I wasn't one of them. Saito-san's words made that very clear. Suddenly I felt cold, as if a cold gust of wind blew through me, draining all of the heat from my body. I was all alone. From then on, Matsumoto-sensei, we can skip this. He came to visit many times. Second Chocho expedition, right? Yep. Wait. Yeah. Yep. And it had failed. And brought down morale a whole hell of a lot. Oh. I'll play this out. Wait. Yes. Yes, because this is Saito's route, so this is the last time we get to do this properly. That day, I was accompanying Saito-san on his rounds. It sure has been hot lately. I've gotten used to the city of Kyoto, but I just can't get used to this humid heat.
そうだな。
I always wondered. Even in midsummer, Saito-san always wore his full uniform. Wasn't he hot? He kept his vigilant guard up while observing the city of Kyoto.
ひとまずあそこの店から回ることにするか。雪村、あんたは店の前で待っていろ。共に来ても手持ち無沙汰だろう。
Alright. He gave me a short nod of confirmation and stepped into the shop with his men.
新選組だ。先日、浪人風の男が出入りしていたという噂を耳にした。戦議させてもらう。
Dan! I've been waiting for Saito-san and his division for a few minutes when I noticed a commotion nearby.
てめえら道を開けやがれ。金王の獅子様がお通りだ。
A number of rather unpleasant-looking Ronin were making their way in my general direction, yelling, threatening, and intimidating anyone unfortunate enough to cross their path. Patriots? Hardly. Perhaps they consider themselves loyal to the imperial court, but they look like the sort who only use their supposed patriotism as an excuse to steal and kill.
おら、邪魔だって言ってんだろ。
The Ronin tossed a poorly aimed kick at a child playing in the street. What should I do? It seemed like the warriors were preoccupied with their investigation in the store. Just as I was about to stop the Ronin.
やめなさいよ、みっともない。
あ？なんだてめえは。たかが女が俺たち金王の獅子に意見するってのか。
そのたかが女に意見されることをみっともないと思いなさいよ。今日の人がどれだけ迷惑してるのかわからないの？
乗れ。
The man's obviously short fuse had been lit. He made a grab for the girl and missed. I suspected his next attack wouldn't be as inaccurate. I couldn't let that happen. Things are fine. I'm reading. Or acting, however you want to say it. I am sleepy though. Natte! When I had come to my senses, I noticed that I had instinctively taken action. I had positioned myself in front of the girl, protecting her.
なんだお前は。その女の知り合いか。
It doesn't help that outside it's very cloudy and rainy, which just makes me want to take a nap. No, I don't.
知り合いじゃねえんならすっ込んでろ。
Flex's spit flew from his mouth as he roared at me, and my legs suddenly felt somewhat weaker than they had a moment ago. But I was committed. I couldn't run now. If you truly love your country as you say, then why do you abuse women and children? A samurai should protect common people, not attack them.
なんだと。そうだそうだ、いいぞお兄ちゃん。獅子気取りの不定老師め、今日からさっさと出ていけ。
Something about my speech must have struck a chord with the gathering crowd. With the cheers, my legs started to regain some of their usual steadiness. Yeah, I'll probably take a nap after this chapter is over, I think.
くっそ、バカにしやがって。
With the rough hiss of metal, the Ronin's sword leaped from its scabbard. I suddenly discovered I had difficulty swallowing. I could try to dodge, but if I did, he might hit the girl my actions had intended to protect. I was about to draw my sword. Slowly, carefully, I opened my eyes.
安心しろ。峰打ちだ。
Saito-san!
そいつを屯所に連れて行け。長州の残党かもしれん。
はい。
Working quickly, Saito-san's men set to work binding the Ronin for transport. Saito-san's cold eyes fell on me. Uh-oh.
何故俺を呼ばなかった。万が一のことがあったらどうするつもりだったのだ。
I'm sorry, I wasn't thinking. But I couldn't help myself. I mean, what if she were to get injured?
怪我なんてしないわよ。まったくもう無茶しちゃって。
A scolding from Saito-san was expected, but I hadn't thought that my erstwhile damsel in distress would contribute. I'm sorry I made you worry. I gave her a short, slightly confused bow to which she blinked as if suddenly remembering something very important.
あ、でも私あなたに助けてもらったのよね。まだお礼を言ってなかったわ。ありがとう。
Oh, well, I didn't do anything. It was Saito-san and his men who made the actual arrest.
別に謙遜なんてしなくていいのに。見て見ぬふりをするよりはずっと立派だったんだから。これも何かの縁だし、女の子同士仲良くしましょうね。
What? Saito-san glanced from her to me, and an expression flashed across his face that I couldn't quite place.
見る者が見ればわかることだ。動揺するな。
あら、もしかして内緒だったの？まずかったかしら。
Well, I wasn't entirely sure how to respond. How does a person respond to that sort of question? She seemed to sense my confusion and gracefully moved on.
あ、ところでまだお名前を聞いてなかったわね。これも何かの縁ですもの。教えてくれるかしら。
Well, this is...
そちらの方は斉藤さんよね。新選組は有名だもの。知ってるわ。で、あなたの名前は？
My name is Chizuru Yukimura. It's nice to meet you.
雪村。
Her eyes grew wide as if she were surprised, and she stared intently at me.
あなた、雪村って姓なの？生まれは東国？
Why, yes. I was living in Edo, but I had to come to Kyoto for a certain reason. She was acting a little strange, so I tried to speak to her and she laughed and looked up.
ごめんなさい、なんでもないの。知り合いと同じ姓だったから。雪村ってすごく綺麗な名字ね。
You think so? Thank you.
よろしくね。私のことはセンって呼んで。
Sensa? Nice to meet you.
なんか水臭いわね。見たところ同い年ぐらいだし、そんなにかしこまらなくていいわよ。
So just Sen, then.
まあいいわ。そう呼んでちょうだい。じゃあまた会いましょうね。
She gave my hand a gentle squeeze, then turned and left, her kimono flapping behind her. Our encounter was over before I had a chance to grasp what was happening, so I simply stood stunned for a moment or two. Saito-san was eyeing Sen walking off, and eventually he turned to me.
あの娘、あんたの姓が気にかかっている様子だったが。
I know, she did say it was the same as her acquaintances. Well, I guess Yukimura isn't an uncommon name either. It seemed like Saito-san was concerned with her reaction to my name, and he was deep in thought.
予定からだいぶ遅れてしまった。そろそろ行くことにするか。
So we continued on our rounds, trying to withstand the scorching heat. The heat wave ended up lasting several days. On one such day, we've been through this. The boys, Soma and Nomura, are puppies, and they're trying to figure out how the fuck do we cool down this tea that we made that's too hot for this hot day, and we need it to be lukewarm. And now Nagakura is here to take them away from us. We can skip this.
まだもし今日
あん
お
いやさ
あ室だが
そう
以前であれば何か
あいどんしかもとしあれま
そうだどこ
あの人
I thought back on what Hijikata-san had said. Oh, I know what this is. This is the Fury section, yep. Just as Hijikata-san had predicted, the Shinsengumi received an official request to guard the notice board at the Sanjo Ohashi Bridge. As it turned out, the vandals were 8 men from the Tosa domain. Harada and his division were well prepared and captured them when they attacked at the Kamo River. Harada was given a reward by the Aizu for his service. Oh no. Oh, I don't want to say Sana-san again. Not in this scene. We've been through this too many times. No, thank you. Bye. The boys are here. What is the last scene that we have? Oh, I think I know what it is. Maybe. I'm thinking. Yes, it has to be. After that, the rest of the warriors who'd gone to Shimabara returned, and they told me in great detail about the Sanjo notice board incident, but out of everything I'd heard, there was one thing in particular that caught my attention. They told me that when Harada and his men had been attacked at Sanjo Ohashi, one of them had been someone who looked a lot like me. This strange person had tried to impede the Shinsengumi and sided with the vandals from the Tosa domain. I haven't left the temple, of course, and even if I had been a Sanjo Ohashi, I would never have tried to get in the Shinsengumi's way. But if it wasn't me, then who? What could it mean? This news only fed the anxiety that had been slowly building within me. Alright, last scene is gonna be cute, damn it. I remember what it is. Unless I'm remembering the wrong order, but I'm pretty sure this is December 1866. We can go past this. It's just the thing with the thing. With the leaves and the potatoes. Yes. Give me the cute scene, please. I know it's after this. Give it to me. Okay, now we get the cute scene. Why are you sad, Dan? End of December 1867. The year had flashed before our eyes, and before we knew it, it drew to a close. It put us in high spirits, having experienced a year without any major battles or incidents. As everyone began gathering to celebrate the new year, we discussed our hopes for what was to come, and looked to welcome the season with open arms. Then, one snowy day in the middle of winter. It's cold. I felt his icy fingers trying to work their way under my blanket the moment I woke up. My breath puffed out in white clouds, and the light streaming in my window had an odd, bright quality. Was it possible? Listen, if you're sad, we're gonna get some cute. Maybe cute will help you not be sad. I looked outside and gasped. A few flakes were still drifting down, but it clearly snowed much harder overnight. The entire compound was white. I had thought it seemed colder than usual, and now I knew why. Huh? Amidst all the white, there was a column of black. A person. Was it? Saito-san! Oh no! Oh man. I don't know how to respond to this. I genuinely don't. I hurried down the steps. He turned slowly and looked at me.
あんたか。今日は随分早起きなのだな。
So have you. What are you doing out here by yourself?
先ほどまで道場で剣の稽古をしていた。稽古を終えた後、雪が積もっているのに気づいたから足を止めてみた。それだけだ。
He fell silent again and looked up at the sky, his face full of muted emotions. I couldn't decipher. If you just finished training, are you, sweaty? I feel like you should dry off, or you're going to get sick.
あんたこそ中に戻って火鉢にでも当たっていた方がいいのではないか。
Okay.
冷えは万病の元というだろう。
He continued to stare at the falling snow and gave no indication that he meant to move. I glanced down at his hands. The cold had already turned his fingertips red, but he either hadn't noticed or didn't care. Do you like the snow? He didn't speak, but from the look on his face, I could tell what his answer would be.
雪というのは不思議なものだな。
Look at that smile on Saito's face. He loves the snow. He looked up at the sky again, a faint smile pulling at his eyes. Powerful.
美しいものも汚れたものもすべてを白く覆い隠す。この風景の中に身を置いていると自分ではない清らかな何かになれるのではないかとそう錯覚してしまう。
He looked and sounded as somber and serious as he always did, but there was a small satisfied smile on his face that I had never seen before. Eventually he turned to look at me.
中に戻らんのか。この寒さの中、その軽装では冷えるだろう。
No. Okay, Dan. Bye-bye. No, I think I'll stay here and look at the snow with you a little bit longer. He looked at me for a moment with an expression I couldn't read.
物好きだな、あんたは。
He turned back around as the snow fell silently around us. Oh no. He blinked and looked at me.
どうした？何かあったか？
Do you want to, play Saito-san? I was just thinking that maybe you'd like to, play in the snow instead of just watching it?
遊ぶ？一体何をするというのだ？
Well, we could make a snowman or a fort or something. I guess a snowball fight wouldn't be very much fun with just two people. His eyes widened.
雪だるまに鎌倉か。わらべのようなことを言うのだな。
Really? Am I that childish?
別に悪行のつもりで言ったわけではない。気にするな。
He turned around again, slightly more quickly, I thought, and looked at the snow.
だが残念ながら、雪だるまを作れるほどは積もっていないようだ。この雪もおそらく昼には溶けてしまうだろう。
Oh, yeah. I felt a little smaller. He seemed to like the snow so much, but I felt like there had to be something I could do to make him happy. Of course! Oh, do you want to make a snow bunny?
雪うさぎ。なんだそれは。
His eyebrows pulled down almost imperceptibly. Oh god. Oh, come on, don't tell me you don't know. Oh, come on, don't tell me you don't know. When I was a kid, I'd make them for my dad every time it snowed.
過分にして聞いたことがない。
Then I'll make you one right now. Hold on.
いや、わざわざ俺のために手間をかけさせるのも。
Oh, don't worry, it'll only take me a second. As I spoke, I began to search the yard for berries and leaves to fashion its eyes and ears from. Saito didn't move and watched me silently as I trotted around in the snow. For a moment, I felt like I was a child again, walking through the yard of my old home in the middle of the winter. Before long... All done! Here you go. I picked up the bunny gently and carried it to him. This is gonna be so cute.
なるほど。これが雪うさぎか。
I can't. Look at the snow bunny. It's so cute. And Saito is just slightly confused. I can't. He stared at the thing in my hands. Isn't it cute? Here, I made it for you.
差し上げると言われても、これをもらってどうしろと。
He was visibly confused, which for Saito-san was saying a lot. Oh, you don't like it? I swallowed and started to step back, but...
いや。
He was silent for a moment, then...
手がずいぶん冷えているな。部屋に戻ったら温めておいた方がいい。ひびや赤切れができるかもしれん。
Until he spoke, I hadn't realized that our hands were touching. I blushed. His long, slender fingers were cupped around my hands, even through the stinging cold of the snow, I could feel a faint warmth from them.
どうした？頬まで赤くなってきたようだが、霜焼けか？
No, that's not it. With his deep blue eyes looking into mine, I felt very shy suddenly and rushed to pull my hands away.
そろそろ中に戻った方が良さそうだな。あんたに風邪でもひかせては、副長に何を言われるかわからん。
He looked down at the snow bunny I had unceremoniously deposited in his hands when I withdrew and smiled.
この雪うさぎはありがたく受け取っておく。すぐに溶けてなくなってしまいそうなのは残念だが。
No, I don't want to think about the melting snow bunny. There was a hint of kindness in his normally flat tone. He inclined his head to me, then turned and walked towards the main temple. As I watched him go, I could still feel the warmth of his hands on mine. The snow bunny remained on Saito's windowsill until the snow melted. Nagakura and Heisuke saw it and laughed. Who knew, they said. Saito-san got so excited when it snowed that he made a snow bunny. I guess he was a kid once. Oh my god. And the fact it stayed on his windowsill. Oh my god. I knew there was something about Saito-san's fruit that I blanked out on. It's just like, oh god, there's a reason why I like this man. But we have reached chapter 4. I am not going on any further than this. Tomorrow we'll continue, though. We are saving! Make sure that it loads. Yes, it does. Got a screen! Okay. So, tomorrow at 3 p.m. EST, we're going to continue Kyoto Winds and finish up Saito-san's route. Because he's not in chapter 4 a lot. Because we know what chapter 4 is. It's a whole Ito situation. Anyway, 9 p.m. EST tonight, we're going to be back with Splatoon 3 as I try to get back into S Plus and X rank. It has been a journey. We might get there, we might not. It depends how it goes tonight. So, drink water. Have a good night or day. Don't die because of not drinking water or not getting enough sleep. And I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.